Hey everyone, Chris G here. Good to see you all again. Yes, it's a Thursday and it's time to get back into Hard Hat the CEO. I have a guest today. His name is Jason Perez. Jason is we're going to talk about ways to invest those monies in the other money trees. And the best part is finding those opportunities where you're at right now. So, welcome, Jason. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me, Chris.
Great. I didn't pay much attention. Where are you located at, Jason?
So I live in a little town called Milton, Georgia, which is a kind of horse community, but it's right outside of Alpharetta, which is a big tech center
Hmm.
for Atlanta, Georgia.
Sure. And let's see here. Now, Jason, you're the CEO of Yardz. You want to tell everybody what Yardz is before we get started?
Yeah, so Yardz essentially is an application that was built from ground up to help contractors simplify the assets they own, assets they rent, simplify tool management, and everything that comes around it. So it has a suite of features to include logistics, inspections, job costing, maintenance, work orders, and then probably the most notable is that we built this rental aggregator that's never been done in the industry. And what that means is we're able to digest data from the big rental companies, United, Sunbelt, Herc, all those people, bring it all into one place like a Power BI type tool. But it sends alerts, notifications, tracks per project, make sure the team all knows what's out there. And at the end of the day, it results in like a 10 to 30% savings in overall rental costs. So people are putting significant money back in the pocket just by managing more efficiently. It doesn't change who they rent with, doesn't change their sales reps, doesn't, it just makes it easier and more efficient for them to do it.
Sure. Now, I asked this question earlier, and now that we're recording, I want to share it with everybody. Would you have seen this opportunity if you hadn't been in the contracting construction business?
Absolutely not. And the funny thing is, Chris, is that early on I fought being in this industry. I went to school, majored in developmental economics, international relations, double majored, and I thought I was going to go to the Marine Corps and go into intelligence. But due to being medically declined, my dad pretty much said, "Look, you've worked in my electrical contracting business before. We're all in construction. Why don't you go make some money in construction and figure out life later?" And so that's what I did. I jumped in. And when you talk about hard hat to CEO, I mean, I was a laborer digging holes when I first started in this industry. I was crawling attics for my dad in residential insulated fiberglass, itchy
Hmm.
spaces in
Yeah.
120-degree weather. Like that's how I started. But
Hmm.
what you find is construction is just a fantastic place. If you have a brain for the art side and the engineering side, and you want to marry it together. And then there's finances, and there's so many facets and components of this industry. You can really fall in love with it because you can do anything in it.
Well, I started out in real estate, just flipping homes and so forth, and I love real estate. It's the same concept. I mean, my team can build a lot of different things, but I just love residential for the most part. That's just my favorite. But that being said, and we talk about in Hard Hat CEO, going to that CEO place and but to find an idea, when I took some classes on how to find and start businesses or solve problems, what kind of problems did you see or experience? I guess maybe some troubles that you thought, well, man, I need to start something like Yards that can solve that problem.
Well, there's a couple things that I noticed. Construction, everybody would say that they're slow to adopt technology, but I don't believe that because I work for one of the largest MEP engineering firms in the world called Siska Hennessy Group, right? They're over 100 years old. They build data centers, healthcare, really high end, great reputation, great culture. And when I worked for them, I saw a lot of technology used. I mean, you can walk an entire building before you even build it because you have VR goggles and everything else and Revit and et cetera, right? All the building modeling that's out there. And there's even AI now that's doing so much around that stuff. So
Yep.
but when I looked at that, I said, well, where's the technology being built? It's all for the white collars. It's all for the designers, architects, and big GCs and these big, beautiful projects. but are we doing anything for the guy that's actually wearing a hard hat and boots every single day?
Right.
And one of my neighbors was in the rental industry, and we started talking about construction and this problem that people rent a lot of equipment and they own a lot of equipment, and it ends up out there and they have no way of tracking it. And some people were talking about telematics, but you look and you're like, well, that doesn't work for rentals because that means I own it if I'm using telematics, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm looking at rentals and I got to log into 5 different portals, and then I've got a whiteboard and I got spreadsheets. And at the end of the day, here's my advice to everybody that starts looking at solving a problem, right? Because you have to do customer discovery. You have to search it out. You got to understand what you're actually trying to solve. And what we did is we walked into office and office and office and over again. And what we found was that people were trying to solve the problem themselves. That's when you know that the problem's big enough. A lot of people complain about things, but not a lot of people do things. But when you see contractors spending their own money, trying to build their own things, or trying to create their own logic and spreadsheets or whatever it might be, now you know you've stumbled upon a big problem. And so when we saw that, we said there's truly a need for these people. And it's not just about can I make money doing it, but we actually saw that we're going to improve a lot of people's lives by solving this problem. You know, people are going to be able to go home early in the day or earlier in the day, or at least, you know, eat lunch away from their desk because we saved them 75% in managing that equipment, instead of, you know, staying there till 6 o'clock at night and getting up and showing up at 6 in the morning the next day.
When you did well, I got two questions actually. So I guess first off, when you started, did you do some testing? I'm sure you did, but I mean, how'd you get some testing people? Did you approach them like, hey, I need a beta site or something to that effect?
I love that question, Chris, because there's a couple things. There's a book called The Mom Test, right? So when you start looking to specifically build tech, but and so the book's kind of focused on these startups and entrepreneurs and whatnot. But the Mom Test is, can you ask questions of these potential customers in a way that doesn't lead them, right? So even if you asked your mother, they would give you unbiased responses to understand what you need to build. Okay. So in other words, I can't say, what do you think about the product? Oh, I love it. I love it. Because most of the people will tell you they love everything, right? It's so
Sure.
cool. But that doesn't mean they're going to buy it, right? So you have to ask very clear questions on how to get to that solution. So we asked those questions that were, you know, mom test proof. And then we built a prototype. And, you know, Chris, I knew nothing about tech. So my first version of what I thought was going to be a prototype, I brought to this incubator out here in Atlanta. And there was a gentleman, Michael Sangbush, another one, Shane Matthews, who actually has the patent for the Super Soaker and the Nerf gun. I mean, super nice guy. He's one of my advisors now, really dear friends. They both said, you're nuts. You're designing an entire system and you haven't even tested one thing. So they ramped it all the way back. And
wow.
instead of spending like 200,000, we spent 10 grand to build a little prototype and test the market. And we found immediately what we thought we needed to build was completely wrong. And so for the next 3 months, we iterated and we got to exactly what we needed to get to. And it saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars, which was my money because I bootstrapped the company from day one.
Sure. And then so, let's see if I'm going here. So just because you have an idea and there are contractors out there, you know, and you think, boy, it's a good idea, you have to test it, and you have to, because I kind of relate it to advertising. Sometimes you'll do ad copy,
Yep.
and you think that is the best ad copy ever. And it might sound good to you, but it doesn't resonate with the people you're trying to get. In the same way here, you have a software of sort, and is it an app on your phone, or is it both?
Yeah, so it's mobile responsive. You don't download the app per se, but
Yeah.
in the browser, it feels exactly like a native app would.
Gotcha. And I'm sure even that part became a process of how the usability and making it easier for those people to use it. Yeah. So the point being is that you're always having to test and evaluate, get feedback, modify, and go again. And you're always, I mean, especially in technology, I'm assuming you're always trying to improve upon it or expand it a little bit, right?
We say in our company that we have to be our own competition, and innovation is the most important thing. But the way you get there is by being close to your customer and being close to the problem. Everybody falls in love. So for the people that are listening, hey, I want to build a tech company. I want to build the next thing. Even if you're building a GC or development, a company as a developer, at the end of the day, you gotta fit and fill a need, right? And the only way you do that is by being close to the customer and close to the problem. So a lot of our customers, we're on weekly calls and we're asking them questions. Hey, you're using Yardz. What else are you doing manually, right? Or you're using Yardz. Is there anything that's taking you longer to do on Yardz than you would like? And we ask these questions over and over again because we don't want somebody coming in and building the better mousetrap. We always want to be the better mousetrap, right? That's where we want to be positioned. And we truly believe as a team that we're high level elite performers. Like everybody that joins the team understands what the expectations are. And we have a lot of grace because we have a lot of expectations.
Not giving away any secrets, but are y'all finding ways to expand? Maybe not. Maybe you've not saturated. Maybe you've used everything you can just for rentals. But is there something else that program, your software can do that you're expanding on or opening up new ideas or new, I don't know, technique, not techniques, what's the word? Your
Yeah, modules, feature set.
modules. Thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Okay.
Chris. So I'll tell you, we started with all this rental intelligence and we built something again that we had seen a history of the last 10 years of other companies trying to build and they weren't able to do it, right? They kept on failing, and some companies raised tens of millions of dollars. We didn't do that. I believe sometimes that the more money you have, the more money you waste. And so we've been very cognizant in how we took that approach. We targeted that rental, really focused on the rentals, and it was our customers that pulled us into the owned assets. And when we got pulled in the owned assets, it was, we need to move them, we need to understand where they're at. And it was all about logistics. Then the next step was, well, we need to maintain them. So then it started turning into these really robust maintenance and work order schedules and telematics and pulling diagnostic codes off of equipment. And then it was, well, we got to inspect these. So we have a robust, electronic inspection component, but they were the ones that continued to pull us in. The latest is that we really got deep into this warehouse side because a lot of our contractors, they rented, they owned, and then they said, well, but we've got all these tools and they end up on equipment, right? We've got some of the companies that are part of the largest utility contractor in the whole entire country. And these are $500 million companies that are doing utilities, and they have tens of thousands of dollars of tools on their truck. And so now we're tracking all those tools and consumables and things on their truck. But it's always customer driven. It's always listening to them and what they need, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that you're servicing. They're the ones that are going to pay for the product, right? They're the ones that are going to help you grow. And that partnership, a lot of our growth in the first 7 years has all been organic. We didn't have 100 salespeople calling out. It was just somebody going, hey, Johnny, have you heard of Yardz? Because we're using them. We love them.
Yeah. Now I don't want to get down in this rabbit hole, but I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
This is back in the day, Milwaukee used to have that little button, a little thing you put on the tool and you kind of track it. Is some of that stuff similar to what you're doing?
So yeah, Bluetooth tags. At a tool level, we do have options for Bluetooth tags. Milwaukee has a tool management system, and they have those tags, and you can see where they're at. The nice thing about Milwaukee is that it's built, and now they're building them into their actual battery. When the old days, you had this tag and
little
it
thing
would
you had to add to it.
Yeah, and it was kind of a pain. And and there's a lot of other products out there that they have these tags and they end up dying sooner than you want and so forth. But we've done a tremendous amount of research to find the best product that solves the problem for our customer. So we took a very clear approach, and this is important, for the people listening. You've got to know what you do really well, and the things that you don't do well, you let other people do, and you create really strong partnerships. When I built my project management consulting firm, Veritas Group.
Mm-hmm.
We did work all over the world in Saudi Arabia, Guantanamo Bay. We had big DoD projects. We had big banks. We had just a lot of projects, all mission critical focus. But I'll tell you, over 50% of our projects were done through partnerships because we found somebody that did something well, or we brought a partner in that did something well, right? So either we got hired because we did something really well that they needed, or we said, hey, we don't need to take the whole pie. Let's just take 50% of the pie because we know we do this really well. Let somebody else, have some of that pie and be efficient. And now in the tech world, it's no different, right? So we don't have to build our own hardware. There are so many hardware providers out there. When you talk about Bluetooth tags and telematics, we want to be the best software provider. We want to be the best product that you get on, you log in, and you can run your whole company on. We don't need to focus on manufacturing hardware. We just need to find the best ones out there that meet our customers' needs, have the highest quality assurance, and do the reporting and the components. And at the end of the day, have a diverse set that if you need GPS or you need 3-wires or you need diagnostic, whatever it is, we have a solution for them.
We probably hit on this already a little bit, but I guess kind of want to bring it home. I think of like Taco Bell, for example. Everybody thinks a restaurant, but they increased their sales by selling their hot sauce in the grocery stores.
Yeah.
So different opportunities there. And I guess my question is, the question is, how do you guys look for other opportunities that might be future revenue sources in the future?
Yes. So what we found is because we've essentially positioned ourselves as an expert in the industry, we're now getting contracts similar. A lot of software companies are, hey, we're just software, we're tech, we want to scale, we want to sell it, we want to not touch you, and we want to leave you alone, right? And we don't care whether you use 5% of the product or 100% of the product, because as long as you're paying for the product, I don't really care. And by the way, when you call me, these other companies, when you call these other companies, you're going to get Philippines, India, wherever for tech support, right? We're completely different. All our support's here in the US. And the reason I bring that up is what we found was, we built a product that's really, really helpful, really, really useful. But what we found is almost consulting back to our customers. So that hot sauce in the grocery store, right? It's like, if we have all this legacy knowledge from hundreds and hundreds of companies that we've helped, why not bring that to our customer and help them better use the product? And so what we found now is that we do have service level agreements and consulting type agreements going back to our customers so that they get the most out of the product. Because I'm not worried in regards to, oh, well, as long as they're paying, that's great. No, what I want them to do is get 10%, 20%, 30% savings. I want them to reduce the number of DOTs or broken down machines or whatever it might be. If I can help them get there, they're only going to be happier. They're going to be more profitable. And at the end of the day, there's going to be more for everybody, right? And that includes us. It might be trickle down, as they used to coin back in the 80s.
Yeah.
But that's true. I mean, for us, it's trickle down economics. If we can help our customers make more money, then they're only going to spend more money with us.
And from a sales point of view, you just said it, but it also makes it easier to say yes, because it's a no-brainer. If I could save this much and you're only charging me this much, why wouldn't I do it anyway?
That's exactly right. And we prove it to them regularly, Chris. I mean, we'll pull it up. We'll say, hey, you had 400 rentals when you started with us. 6 months later, you've got 250 and you've ramped up production on your job site, right? Or you called off 20 pieces of equipment in the first month that you didn't even know was there, and that equates 50 grand for the month, right? Like, we are constantly showing these things. We actually, we're not allowed to share the name of all our customers, but we have a top 3 ENR company that's using our product, and for them, they have a do not rent list, right? So one of our features is you're not allowed to rent certain things in the company. And so sure enough, when they rent it, it pops up in Yardz and they're like, hey, you're not supposed to rent this. they had things out there that they weren't supposed to rent that people are renting, and they're like, no, we own this stuff's sitting on our yard. Why are we renting these
why
things?
are you renting that? Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, immediately it was easy for us to show what that savings was when all those things started coming up. Again, you know, if I'm a firm believer, keep that customer first. Spend the time that you need to invest in them, and they're going to invest back in you.
Have you taken, and I think you have, but I want to hear it from you, I guess, because I've looked at everybody knows my VAs give me information before we have a meeting. So any of those extra funds, have you invested in other projects to bring in those
So
revenues
yeah,
that you might not be involved with? Go ahead.
yeah. There's a couple things. I mean, all my funds that I got from my project management, construction management firm is what invested into this tech company, right? It's what built the Yardz initially. After a couple years, we had advisors, we had angel investors slash advisors, and customers that all want to invest in the company. So we put aside a certain percentage and allowed them to buy in because they were a huge part. And again, I agreed that, you know, you bring everybody together, everybody should be able to make money. So we let them buy into the company there. Since then, I continue to look for opportunities to invest in other boots on the ground type technologies in construction, because I believe that the boots on the ground type technology is what's going to continue to thrive, because that's where there's the least amount of money being spent, right? So if you can make the job easier for the guy that's actually swinging a hammer, right, bending conduit, running copper, whatever it is, like if you can find a way to make their life easier, because what was it? Gosh, I think it was 5 years ago. I was listening to the economist for AGC, and he said that the people in the field, they measured, and it was like 45% productive in a day. 45% productive. So if you can create tech or create something, right? Whether it's a physical product or whether it's software or whatever it might be, to help them be more productive, those are the companies that are going to win. And then, you know, at the end of the day, if you can find true ROI type products to invest in the construction world, you know, there's a lot of startups out there. There's a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of, you know, for the people that are out there looking for these things, go to tech incubators in your local cities, right? Atlanta has several around here, and find out, if I know construction, I can go look at construction tech and follow them for a couple years and see, all right, is this something that I want to invest in or not? Meet with the founder, see if you know, you believe in that team, see if you believe in the CEO and the leader, because there's significant money to be made in this sector. When you talk about construction tech and the valuations and the multipliers that you get, it's a worthwhile place to invest.
When you were bootstrapping, were you working something else, or did you own something else at the time?
I had essentially sold off contracts and everything for my consulting company. I had some passive income from there, but I didn't have a job anymore or a company anymore type thing, right? So most of it was just being fed from savings. And you know, it's that big risk, that big jump and plunge that you
Leap of
take.
faith. Yeah.
Yeah, the leap of faith. That's the right words that I was looking for. It was the leap of faith to take that on. And you know, I didn't pay myself any money out of it, right? I was feeding the company for multiple years before I was actually able to start to draw a salary from it. So it's, you know, I will tell people that if you can, my recommendation is, if you can continue to work where you're at, or if you can continue to CEO your company and, you know, maybe do some investments or start, you know, a different a tech startup or something within the industry, or venture out like you're saying, Chris. I mean, if you're doing GC work and you want to venture, maybe I'm going to build my first commercial property for myself, right? And do some development. Like those
That's
are great things to do, right?
one of my favorites.
Yeah.
We talk about that later.
I love commercial real estate, and I
But
love
working for yourself, I
small
mean,
commercial real
in
estate.
theory, you're working for yourself. I know it's not legally, we fixed all that paperwork, but you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You're your boss and your owner. So anyway.
That's exactly right. And I love that area as well, you know, but I always recommend if you can continue having some type of financial means to feed you, especially passively while you're building that next one and taking a little bit of more risk. I mean, this is probably my riskiest venture I've ever taken. You know, but it's also the one that has the biggest upside. You know, tech companies have big upsides.
Oh yeah. Before we wrap up, you said something earlier, and it triggered the question. You said about 5 years ago they were talking about the efficiency, like 45%.
Yep.
And that's one of the biggest things I hear about today. Is like, well, if I can find the helpers, they're not very good.
That's right.
And then obviously, and that's, well, sometimes you got to pay what you get for, or what you get. But I know that financially doesn't always work out, and you got to do the math. So by having Yardz, for example, you can hire a person a little bit more, a better person, but you make them more efficient by using either different equipment or different tools, softwares, and so forth. Is that kind of, am I going down the right path?
You're 100% doing it in the right path. And here's the struggle that everybody has. And I actually do talks on this. When you start talking about kind of the dirt under the fingernail, old legacy guys that know how to build, right? Know the trades, inside and out, right? But they're reluctant to adopt tech. And then you have this new generation that loves tech, wants to put their nose in their phone, but doesn't want to walk the job, right? And you've got to bridge both these sides to actually have success. And a lot of people want them in vacuums. I think you need to get them both in a room and get them talking and get them working and building relationships, because that's what's going to lead to your success. All that said, for the companies that don't adopt technology, and I'm not saying this because I have a tech company, I got into having a tech company because of this, right?
Yes.
So
that's right.
The companies that don't adopt tech are gonna be way behind, because here's the thing: tech standardized processes for your company. It's kind of like, where would you be if you still ran all your ERP, right? All your accounting in a spreadsheet? It would be miserable. It would be miserable. But you identified at some point that you should get an ERP and a project management software and a to standardize for everybody. And when that person leaves, because that happens, somebody else can jump right in and they know exactly what's going on in the project, because all the RFIs are in the right place, the submittals are in the right place. I can go through all the contracts. I know where everything's at. Everything's standardized. You've got to do that, not just in the office. You got to be able to get there to where the guy that you hire, when they come in, there's something standardized to do. And for us, it's the equipment side. You got to get somewhere where managing your equipment, managing rentals, managing tools becomes just a standard process. And if that person leaves on vacation or at some point they retire, you're not suffering, right? And that's where everybody's forgetting. They go, well, I got somebody and they're doing the job. Okay, well, one, are they? It's great you have somebody, and it's great that they're doing the job. Are they doing the job right? Let's start with that.
Yep.
You know, and what happens when that person leaves? You should be asking yourself those two questions. As a CEO, are they doing the job right? And what happens if they leave? And if you, at any point, can't say, I know they're doing it right because X, Y, Z, or when they leave, I can easily put somebody in that position, then you got to start thinking like a CEO. Because right now you're just thinking like a business owner, right? You're just, the business is working you. You're not working the business.
I was going to say something profound, but actually I've changed my mind. I want to say something else. In the Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book, Cash Flow Quadrant.
Yes.
And my goal, talk about the employee and the self-employed, and then you got a business owner and then an investor. My goal is to get the people who are now business owners converted over to the investor side.
Yes.
And I think some people get stuck. They're very fortunate to get that far, to just be the business owner, because it's hard to get out of those other two sides sometimes. But now it's time, okay, we're business owners. We're not working in the business. We want to turn over those reins to somebody else and then now become an investor. So uh, what I was going to tell you, and we'll wrap this up. In my business, Missouri Barn Builders, and we go from one extreme to the other, because I have a majority of my workforce is Amish, so no
Yep.
technology at all. Now, that being said, I have my son-in-law and I have other workers that we have to use technology. There's no question about it to stay relative to the community and to the market today. So I have other people who use technology all the time, but I have that don't need it at all. But
Yep.
it's just
Yep.
amazing how they. Anyway, we can talk about Amish.
Well, you know, if everybody followed the example of the Amish, where they actually have, you know, skilled trade and they pass those skills down to the next generation, that wouldn't be an issue. But we're not. We're operating, and again, back to one of the talks that I gave with this old generation, new generation, we're almost afraid for them to talk because we're going, this guy is really mean and he's out in the field and he's hard as nails and he shows up even if he's coughing blood. And this guy, if he gets a sniffle, he's never going to show up and he's offended by everything that's said, right? And we're going, we'll just leave him separate. No, bring them together. Bring them together. You know, the Amish, they bring that next generation up, and they know how to do things from generation to generation. They don't separate them. We need to do the same. We need to mix them. We need to pass that legacy knowledge on, and we also need to figure out how to create legacy knowledge that's leveraging tech.
And lastly, they understand that they need tech. They don't want to use it, but that's why we work so well together, because they know that I do the technology side, the advertising, the marketing, you know, and the scheduling and so forth, getting them there. And they know that they know what they know best, and it works out great. So,
that's awesome.
Jason, how would somebody get hold of you if they're interested in Yardz or anything else that you offer?
Yes, so my email is Jason, Jason, at Yardz, that's YARDZ as in zebra.com. Please send me an email. I love helping people out. I love talking about that tech journey. If you're thinking about getting in tech, I help people all the time. A lot of entrepreneurs, they sit on multiple boards. That's that switch, right, from being a business owner to now being an investor. And it doesn't have to be just investment in finances and capital. You should be investing in people and giving your knowledge freely, right? And investing in those people because they'll come back and they'll take care of you as well.
Great. As always, you can find Jason's contact information in the show notes. Also, if you enjoy what we talked about today, you want to contact with me, set up an appointment and in the show notes as well. Be happy to talk to you. Again, this is Chris with Hard Hat the CEO. Jason, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Chris. It's been a pleasure.
All right. You have a good one. Bye-bye.